comment and rate my story from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I count on your help. The late afternoon sun beat down on the hot asphalt of the bustling metropolis when a 4-year-old girl, who looked no more than 2 due to her extreme fragility, wandered the busy streets in search of food. Her tiny bare feet were bruised by the rough concrete, and her dirty clothes hung loosely on her thin little body. Tangled hair framed an angelic face marked by hunger and exhaustion. She had run away from the foster home 3 days ago after another session of mistreatment that left her with purple marks on her arms. The fear of being found made her tremble constantly, but she preferred facing the dangers of the streets to returning to that place of terror. She walked aimlessly, begging for crumbs from the hurried passers-by who ignored her small presence. It was when she spotted the high walls of a luxurious mansion that her attention was captured by desperate cries coming from the garden. Curious, the girl approached the ornate gates and managed to peek through the gilded bars. What she saw left her paralyzed with horror. A man was being attacked by a gigantic anaconda that was coiling around his muscular body. The man was strikingly handsome, with the looks of a soap opera heartthrob and the physique of a movie star. His 30 years were evident in his masculine posture, even as he struggled desperately against the monstrous snake. His dark hair was disheveled from the fight, and his eyes expressed genuine panic as he tried to free himself from the serpent's deadly coils. The girl noticed that thick ropes bound the man's wrists, preventing him from using his hands to defend himself properly. Without hesitating for a second, her small hand found a sharp rock on the ground. With a determination that contrasted with her fragile appearance, she climbed the gate with surprising agility and ran towards the man in danger. "Mr. Hold still," she cried in her high-pitched voice, approaching the perilous situation. The widowed millionaire, who had amassed his fortune through shrewd investments in stock market shares, looked at the child with surprise and despair. He couldn't understand where this tiny girl had come from, but his hopes were renewed when he saw her running towards him. The girl, with precise and careful movements, began to cut the ropes that bound the man's wrists. Her small hands trembled, but she maintained absolute focus on the task. The anaconda, disturbed by the presence of the child, slightly loosened its grip, allowing the man to breathe better. "Almost there," murmured the girl, sawing the last strand of the rope with the sharp stone. At the exact moment the ropes broke, the man managed to push the snake with full force, causing it to move away enough for him to stand up. The anaconda, irritated, hissed menacingly before slithering quickly into the garden bushes, disappearing among the dense vegetation. The millionaire stood for a few seconds panting, trying to process what had happened. His eyes fixed on the girl, who remained standing a few feet from him, trembling visibly. The difference between them was stark. He, with his expensive clothes torn by the fight, exuding wealth even in his disheveled condition. She, a clearly abandoned child, whose courage had just saved his life. You saved me," he said, his voice still hoarse from the fright. The girl lowered her eyes, unsure. "You were in danger. I couldn't just stand there." The man approached slowly, noticing how she recoiled with each step he took. There was something in the child's posture that suggested deep trauma, an instinctive distrust that only someone who had suffered greatly would develop. "What's your name?" he asked, crouching down to her level. The girl hesitated, biting her lower lip. "I don't have an important name." The answer broke the millionaire's heart. He looked more closely at the child. The extreme thinness, the dirty clothes, the bruised feet. It was obvious that she had been living on the streets for some time. The fact that she had risked her own safety to save him deeply impressed him. "Where are your parents?" he insisted gently. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "They left a long time ago. Now I take care of myself." The man felt a wave of inexplicable emotion. There was something about that child that touched a part of his heart that he thought was dead since he had lost his young wife 2 years before. His dollar fortune and his Bitcoin investments seemed irrelevant in the face of the pure courage of that girl. "Are you hungry?" he asked, noticing how she was staring intently at the house. She nodded shyly, and he made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. "How about you come with me? I'll fix you something to eat." But the moment they stood up to walk towards the mansion, the girl staggered and her eyes rolled back. Her small body collapsed on the ground like a rag doll, completely unconscious. The millionaire knelt beside her, desperate, not knowing what to do in the face of that unexpected situation. The millionaire carried the unconscious girl in his strong arms, feeling how she weighed almost nothing. Her skin was cold and pale, and he could feel the protruding bones through her worn clothes. Running through the main entrance of the mansion, he shouted for help. "Ethel! Ethel, come quickly!" His voice echoed through the luxurious halls. The dedicated 60-year-old housekeeper appeared immediately, wiping her hands on her apron. Ethel had worked in that house for more than 2 decades, since before her boss's marriage, and knew every inch of that place. Her grey hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and her kind eyes widened when she saw the unconscious child. "My God, who is this child?" she exclaimed, rushing to open the door to the guest room. "She saved me from a snake in the garden and then fainted," he explained quickly, laying the child on the soft bed. "Call Dr. Gable immediately." Ethel nodded and ran to get the phone, but not before covering the girl with a warm blanket. The millionaire stood by the bed, watching the child's angelic face. There was something deeply disturbing about seeing someone so small in such a state of abandonment. 20 minutes later, Dr. Gable, an experienced 50-year-old man who had been serving the family for decades, arrived at the mansion. After carefully examining the girl, he called the millionaire for a private conversation in the hallway. "She is severely malnourished," explained the doctor, taking off his glasses to clean them. "But there is something more worrying. The signs I observed suggest a rare neurological condition that causes frequent fainting spells. She will need more detailed tests to confirm the diagnosis." "Is it serious?" asked the man, feeling genuine concern for the child. "It can be controlled with proper treatment, but without regular medical care." The doctor paused meaningfully. "Well, a child in those conditions living on the streets wouldn't have much time." The revelation hit the millionaire like a punch to the stomach. That brave girl who had risked everything to save him was in fact fighting a much bigger battle against her own health condition. When they returned to the room, the girl was slowly waking up. Her big eyes moved nervously around the luxurious environment, clearly frightened by the unfamiliar place. "Where am I?" she murmured, trying to sit up. "You're safe," said the millionaire, approaching carefully. "You fainted in the garden. This is Dr. Gable. He just wants to make sure you're okay." The girl looked suspiciously at the doctor, cowering against the headboard of the bed. "I didn't do anything wrong. Please don't take me back." "Back where?" asked Ethel, sitting delicately on the edge of the bed. The child's eyes filled with tears. "To the bad place, where they hurt the kids. I ran away, but I'm afraid they'll find me." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. The millionaire felt his jaw clench with anger as he imagined what that innocent child had suffered. Ethel, with her keen maternal instinct after decades of caring for the house, reached out to gently caress the girl's tangled hair. "No one will hurt you here, honey," said Ethel in a motherly voice. "You're safe." At that moment, the sound of high heels echoed through the hallway, announcing the arrival of the cruel stepmother. The 50-year-old woman entered the room with an expression of poorly disguised disdain. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, and her expensive dress contrasted sharply with the simplicity of the girl on the bed. "What does this mean?" she asked in a cutting voice. "Why is there a beggar in our house? She saved me from an attack in the garden," explained the millionaire, noticing how the girl shrank even more at the woman's harsh tone. "And that's why you brought her inside? We don't know where she came from, what diseases she might be carrying. The stepmother made a face of disgust. It's completely irresponsible. Ethel stood up, positioning herself protectively between the stepmother and the child. The girl is clean and poses no danger. She just needs care. Care that is not our responsibility, retorted the stepmother. There are appropriate institutions to deal with this kind of situation. The millionaire felt irritation growing in his chest. Since his father had married that woman 5 years ago, she had constantly demonstrated her selfish and cruel nature. Her obsession with the family fortune was well known, and her lack of compassion always bothered him. She's staying, he said firmly. At least until she recovers completely. The stepmother's eyes flashed with barely contained anger. I hope you know what you're doing. Abandoned children bring trouble. They always do. After the stepmother's stormy departure, the tension in the room visibly lessened. The girl, who had witnessed the entire argument in silence, looked at the millionaire with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked, in an almost inaudible voice. The question deeply touched the man's heart. He sat in the armchair next to the bed, thinking carefully about his answer. Since the loss of his wife, he had closed himself off emotionally, focusing only on expanding his business and multiplying his net worth. But there was something about that child that awakened feelings he thought he had buried forever. "Because you were brave enough to help me when I needed it," he answered honestly. "And now it's my turn to help you." Ethel, who was watching the interaction with tears in her eyes, approached again. "How about a warm bath and some clean clothes? Then we can make a nice, tasty soup." The girl nodded shyly, and Ethel helped her get out of bed. As they left towards the bathroom, the millionaire was left alone with his turbulent thoughts. The house, which had always seemed empty and cold to him since his wife's departure, suddenly seemed to have gained a purpose. But he had no idea that, at that very moment, the stepmother was in her room making a call that would change everything. In a low, conspiratorial voice, she was talking to someone about the urgent need to find out exactly who that child was and where she had come from. "Yes, I want all the possible information about her," she whispered into the phone. "And I want to know tonight. I have a feeling that this girl is going to bring trouble for all of us." Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Ethel helped the girl to bathe, discovering with horror the signs of abuse on her small body. Each scar told a story of suffering that made the housekeeper's heart break into pieces. The next morning, the girl woke up in a soft bed for the first time in months. The golden sunlight filtered through the silk curtains, creating dancing patterns on the high ceiling. For a moment she thought she was dreaming, but the smell of pancakes coming from the kitchen confirmed that this luxurious reality was true. Ethel had left clean clothes on the armchair, a light blue dress the right size, and small shoes that looked new. The housekeeper had gone out early to buy everything, using her own money, because she didn't want the child to feel like an intruder. When the girl went down for breakfast, she found the millionaire sitting at the dining room table, reading financial reports about his investments in real estate funds. He looked up when he saw her and smiled genuinely, something he hadn't done in a long time. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, folding the papers. "Yes, sir," she replied shyly, remaining standing at the entrance to the room. "You can just call me by my name," he said, rising to pull out a chair for her. "And you can sit at the table. This is your home now." The girl hesitated before approaching. Her past experiences had taught her that kindness often came with dangerous expectations, but there was something genuine in that man's eyes that reassured her. Ethel appeared carrying a tray with pancakes, fresh fruit, and hot chocolate. "I prepared everything, especially for you, dear," she said, serving a generous plate. The child's eyes widened at so much food. She began to eat slowly, savoring each bite as if it were the last. The millionaire watched discreetly, feeling his heart ache as he saw her put pieces of pancake in her dress pocket, clearly a habit developed during times of scarcity. "You don't need to save food," he said gently. "There will always be more when you're hungry." The girl stopped eating and looked at him distrustfully. "Do you promise?" "I promise." At that moment, the stepmother came down the stairs, with her heels making a purposeful noise. She was wearing an expensive red dress and extravagant jewelry, as if she were going to a social event in the middle of the morning. Her cold eyes fixed on the girl with obvious disapproval. "Still here?" she commented, pouring herself coffee into a fine porcelain cup. "I thought it was just a temporary visit." "She's staying as long as necessary," replied the millionaire, his voice carrying a warning tone. "How interesting," murmured the stepmother, sitting down elegantly. "And have you thought about the legal implications of harboring a missing child? Because I did some research last night." The silence that followed was tense. The girl stopped eating, feeling the danger in the atmosphere. Ethel approached discreetly, positioning herself protectively behind the child's chair. "What kind of research?" asked the millionaire, keeping his voice controlled. "I contacted a private investigator, a very competent man who works with cases of missing children." The stepmother smiled coldly. "He already has some interesting leads about our little guest." The girl paled, dropping the fork on the plate with a metallic clatter. Her small hands began to tremble, and she looked desperately at the exits of the room, calculating a possible escape. "You had no right to do that without consulting me," said the millionaire, feeling anger rising. "I had every right," she retorted. "This is my house too, and I have responsibilities. We can't simply ignore the consequences of our actions." Ethel leaned in and whispered something in the girl's ear, trying to calm her down. But the child was clearly panicking, her breaths becoming rapid and shallow. "See," said the stepmother, pointing to the girl's state. "She clearly has something to hide. Innocent children don't react like that." "She's scared because you're being cruel," replied Ethel, with a courage that surprised everyone. "Any child would be like that, being threatened." The stepmother got up abruptly, knocking over the coffee cup, which shattered on the floor. "How dare you speak to me in that tone? You're just a maid." "A maid who knows this house and this family better than you," retorted Ethel, her eyes shining with determination. The millionaire stood up, trying to control the situation that was getting out of control. But before he could speak, the girl collapsed once again. Her small body slipped from the chair and hit the marble floor with a thud that echoed through the room. "Call doctor." "Gable!" shouted the millionaire, kneeling beside the child. As Ethel ran to get the phone, the stepmother remained standing, watching the scene with an indecisive expression. There was something in her eyes that suggested that this situation was developing exactly as she expected. 20 minutes later, Dr. Gable was again examining the girl in the guest room. This time, his findings were more alarming. "The episodes are getting more frequent," he explained to the millionaire. "This suggests that stress is aggravating her condition. She needs a completely quiet and pressure-free environment." "She'll have that," promised the millionaire. "There's something else," continued the doctor, lowering his voice. "During the examination, I noticed that she whispered something about them coming to get her. She seems very afraid of something specific." At that moment, the mansion's doorbell rang. Ethel went down to answer and returned minutes later with a worried expression on her face. "It's a man who identifies himself as a private investigator," she said. "He says he needs to talk about the girl." The stepmother smiled with satisfaction. "How convenient. It seems my research has yielded fruit more quickly than I expected." The millionaire looked at the still, unconscious child on the bed and made a decision that would define the next events. "Tell him to come back tomorrow. Today is not a good day." "He insists it's urgent," replied Ethel. "He says he has important information about the foster home she ran away from." The word foster home made the girl stir in the bed, even unconscious. It was as if her subconscious reacted to the fear of that terrible place. "All right," said the millionaire reluctantly. "But he talks to me first, alone." The stepmother approached him. "I think I should be present. After all, this situation affects the whole family." "No," he said firmly, "you've caused enough trouble for one day." As they went downstairs to meet the investigator, Ethel remained beside the girl, holding her small hand. The housekeeper had developed a fierce protective instinct towards the child, something she hadn't felt since she raised her own children decades ago. In the study, a thin, 40-year-old man was waiting for them. He wore a cheap suit and had small, calculating eyes that moved nervously around the luxurious environment. "I found some very interesting information about your little protégé," he said, opening a yellowed folder. "The foster home she ran away from isn't exactly what it seems to be." The investigator placed photographs on the table, and what the millionaire saw made him nauseous. They were images of children clearly mistreated, sleeping in deplorable conditions. "This place was closed by the government last week," continued the investigator. "They discovered a scheme of systematic abuse. Many children are still missing." "So she told the truth," murmured the millionaire, feeling relief and horror at the same time. "Yes, but there's something more complicated." The investigator hesitated. "The authorities are looking for all the children who ran away. They want to question them about what they saw inside." The revelation fell like a bomb on the millionaire. The girl who had saved his life was about to be taken back to a system that could hurt her again, even unintentionally. The investigator continued to flip through his folder with nervous fingers, revealing more disturbing details about the case. The authorities arrived at the foster home after an anonymous tip. What they found there was beyond what anyone could imagine. The millionaire leaned forward, feeling the weight of the responsibility he had assumed by taking in the girl. His investments in stocks and his fortune accumulated over the years seemed insignificant in the face of the complexity of that situation. "How many children are still missing?" he asked, fearing the answer. 12, replied the investigator, taking off his cheap glasses to clean the lenses. "Your protégé is one of them, and there's a considerable reward for anyone who provides information about the whereabouts of any of these children." The stepmother, who had remained silent, suddenly showed renewed interest. Her eyes gleamed with a poorly disguised greed as she heard about the financial reward. "What kind of reward?" she asked, trying to sound casual. $50,000 per child recovered," said the investigator. "The government really wants to question these children to build a solid case against those responsible for the foster home." The millionaire felt a chill run down his spine. He immediately realized that the stepmother was calculating the financial possibilities of the situation. Knowing her greedy nature, he knew she wouldn't hesitate to hand the girl over if it meant profit. "And if someone decides not to hand over the child?" he asked, testing the options available. "Well, technically that would be obstruction of justice," the investigator hesitated. "But I understand that some people may have developed emotional attachments. The process can be negotiated." The word negotiated hung in the air like a veiled threat. The millionaire understood perfectly that he was being subtly blackmailed. The investigator knew of his wealth and was testing how far he would be willing to go to protect the girl. At that moment, Ethel appeared at the door of the study with an urgent expression on her face. "Sir, the girl has woken up and is asking for you. She seems very agitated." "Excuse me," said the millionaire, getting up quickly. As he went upstairs, he heard the stepmother talking in a low voice with the investigator, but he couldn't distinguish the words. His suspicions about a possible conspiracy between them began to take shape. In the room, he found the girl sitting on the bed, hugging a pillow as if it were a protective shield. Her tears were soaking the soft fabric, and she was trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Did they come to get me?" she asked in a voice strangled by fear. "No," he said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "You're safe here. But I heard voices downstairs, voices of strange people." She shrank even more. "At the foster home, whenever strange people came, things got worse for us." The millionaire's heart broke hearing those words. He began to understand the depth of the trauma that child carried. Each unknown sound, each new presence represented a potential threat in her wounded mind. "Listen," he said, choosing his words carefully. "There are people looking for the children who ran away from the foster home. They say they just want to ask questions to help punish those who hurt you." "No!" she cried, throwing herself into his arms. "Please, don't let me go with them. I promise to be a good girl. I promise not to cause trouble." The desperation in her voice was heartbreaking. The millionaire hugged her tightly, feeling how her small body trembled with absolute terror. At that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of their lives. "No one's taking you from here," he whispered in her ear. "I promise." Ethel, who was watching from the doorway, approached with tears in her eyes. "Honey, would you like me to make you some hot cocoa? It always made me feel better when I was little." The girl nodded, still clinging to the millionaire's chest. When Ethel left, he looked her in the eyes with seriousness. "I need to ask you an important question," he said. "At the foster home, did you see very bad things happening to other children?" She nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears again. "They hurt us when no one was looking, and they made us stay quiet or it would be worse. And you ran away alone? I tried to take my little friend with me, but she was too sick to run," the girl sobbed. "I wanted to go back to get her, but I was too scared." The millionaire felt a deep anger growing in his chest. That child had lived through horrors that no adult should experience, let alone a girl of just 4 years old. 40 minutes later, when he went down to the study again, he found the stepmother and the investigator in a lively conversation. They stopped abruptly when he entered. "We've reached an interesting agreement," announced the stepmother with a forced smile. "Mr. here explained to us that it would be better for everyone if the girl were handed over voluntarily. Less trauma for her, fewer legal complications for us." "No," said the millionaire firmly. "She's not going anywhere." The investigator stood up, adjusting his cheap suit. "Sir, I understand your position, but this isn't a suggestion. It's a matter of time before the authorities track down all the children. It would be better to cooperate voluntarily. And if I don't cooperate?" "Well," the investigator smiled coldly, "a man of your financial standing certainly wouldn't want to be investigated by the authorities. Sometimes when they start digging into someone's life, they find things unexpected." The threat was clear and direct. The millionaire understood that he was being openly blackmailed. His Bitcoin transactions, his international investments, everything could be used against him if he didn't cooperate. "How much?" he asked, deciding to play their game. "Excuse me?" The investigator pretended not to understand. "How much do you want to forget you saw the girl here?" The stepmother and the investigator exchanged knowing glances. It was exactly what they expected to hear. $200,000, said the investigator, "and guarantees that you won't interfere in future investigations. And if I pay, the girl is left in peace." "For now," replied the investigator ambiguously. The millionaire realized that he was dealing with unscrupulous people who would come back whenever they needed money, but buying time was essential at the moment. "I need 2 days to gather that amount," he lied. "I don't keep that much liquid cash." "1 day?" countered the stepmother. "And we want half tomorrow as a sign of good faith." "All right," he agreed, even though every fiber of his being screamed against that blackmail. After the investigator left, the stepmother remained in the study, arranging papers with calculated movements. "I hope you understand that this is for the best," she said, without looking at him. "That girl will only bring trouble to our family." "Our family?" he repeated with irony. "Since when do you care about the family?" "Since always," she lied blatantly, "and that's why tomorrow I'm going to start taking more definitive measures to protect our interests." The veiled threat in her words made the millionaire's blood run cold. He began to realize that the situation was much more dangerous than he imagined, and that the stepmother had plans that went beyond simply handing the girl over to the authorities. That night, while the girl slept peacefully in the guest room, the millionaire remained awake, planning how to protect her from all the dangers that surrounded them. The next morning, the atmosphere in the mansion was charged with tension. The millionaire woke up early after a night of sleep interrupted by nightmares about losing the girl. When he went down for coffee, he found Ethel in the kitchen preparing a special tray with oatmeal and fruit cut into fun shapes. "How was her night?" he asked, pouring himself strong coffee. "She woke up 3 times screaming," replied Ethel, with tears in her eyes. "Terrible nightmares about bad people coming to get her. I had to stay in the room until she fell back asleep." The millionaire's heart ached. Each day that passed, he felt more connected to that brave child who had risked everything to save him. His profits in dividends and his investments in gold seemed completely irrelevant compared to her well-being. When they went up to the room, they found the girl awake, but huddled under the covers like a small, wounded animal. Only her big eyes appeared from above the fabric, nervously watching the door. "Good morning, honey," said Ethel in a gentle voice. "I brought your favorite breakfast." The girl emerged slowly from the covers, but her movements were cautious, as if she expected some danger at any moment. When she saw the millionaire, her eyes filled with relief. "You didn't leave," she murmured. "Why would I leave?" he asked, sitting in the armchair next to the bed. "At the foster home, when important people came to see us, then they always left and never came back," she explained, accepting the tray from Ethel. "And then things got worse for us." The revelation broke the hearts of the 2 adults. That child had learned to associate hope with subsequent abandonment, creating a defense mechanism that always prepared her for the worst. "I'm not leaving," promised the millionaire, "no matter what happens." While the girl ate slowly, savoring each spoonful as if it were precious, the sound of raised voices came from downstairs. The stepmother was arguing with someone on the phone, and her voice carried evident irritation. "Stay here with her," said the millionaire to Ethel. "I'll see what's going on." Going downstairs, he found the stepmother walking nervously around the living room, talking on an expensive gold phone. She made exaggerated gestures with her free hand, clearly agitated with the conversation. "I don't care if it's complicated," she said sharply. "Find a way to speed up the process. We have a deadline to meet." When she noticed the millionaire's presence, she ended the call quickly and turned to him with a forced smile. "Good morning, dear," she said, trying to sound casual. "Did you sleep well?" "Who are you talking to?" he asked directly. "Just administrative matters," she replied evasively. "Nothing you should worry about." At that moment, the mansion's doorbell rang. Ethel came running down the stairs, clearly worried. "It's the same investigator from yesterday," she announced. "He said he has urgent news." The stepmother smiled with satisfaction, as if she expected exactly that visit. "How convenient," she murmured. The investigator entered the room carrying a folder even larger than the previous one. His small eyes gleamed with a poorly disguised greed, and he greeted the stepmother with a familiarity that did not go unnoticed by the millionaire. "I have news about our little situation," he announced, opening the folder on the coffee table. "The authorities have intensified the search. They're offering $100,000 now for each child recovered." The millionaire noticed how the stepmother's eyes sparkled when she heard the doubled amount. It was obvious that she and the investigator were working together to maximize the profit of the situation. "And there's something more," continued the investigator, taking a photo from the folder. "We discovered that your protégée isn't just an ordinary witness. She was the informal leader of the children in the foster home. The other children protected her, and she protected them in return. This makes her extremely valuable to the investigation." The photograph showed the girl in the foster home, surrounded by other children who looked at her with admiration and affection. Even in deplorable conditions, she maintained a protective posture towards the younger ones. "This means that she knows more details about the abuses than any other child," explained the investigator. "Her testimony could be decisive in convicting those responsible. And it also means, added the stepmother, that keeping her here is even more dangerous for us. If they find out we're hiding the main witness—" "No one is hiding anything," interrupted the millionaire. "She is being cared for properly while she recovers from the trauma. Trauma that will only get worse if she doesn't receive adequate professional help," argued the investigator. "The government has specialized psychologists waiting to treat her. Psychologists who will force her to relive all the horrors she's lived through," retorted the millionaire. "She can barely sleep a whole night without nightmares." At that moment, a desperate scream echoed through the upper floor. It was the girl, clearly in a severe panic attack. Everyone ran to the room and found Ethel trying to calm the child, who had entered a severe anxiety attack. "They're here, aren't they?" sobbed the girl. "I heard the voices. They came to get me like I knew they would." The millionaire knelt beside the bed, completely ignoring the presence of the others. "No one's taking you from here," he said firmly. "I promise." "But you can't promise that," she said, her big eyes fixed on his. "You're just one man. They're many, and they always get what they want." The sad wisdom of that 4-year-old was heartbreaking. She had learned that adults made promises they couldn't keep, and that power always won over goodness. The investigator approached the bed, taking an official document from his pocket. "Girl, my name is Reynolds, and I work with the government. We need to ask you some questions about the place where you lived before." "No!" she screamed, hiding behind the millionaire. "I don't want to answer questions. You're going to hurt me if I tell the truth." "No one's going to hurt you," said Reynolds, but his voice didn't convey the necessary kindness. "We just want to know what happened there." "That's enough," said the millionaire, standing up. "She's clearly not in a condition to be interrogated." "It's not an interrogation," protested the stepmother. "It's a standard procedure to protect other children." "A procedure that can wait," retorted Ethel, positioning herself protectively beside the bed. The investigator sighed, putting away the document. "Very well, but this can't be postponed indefinitely. Tomorrow I'll be back with the social worker responsible for the case. It will be a formal process. There will be no more negotiations." After the investigator left, the stepmother remained in the room, watching the girl with a calculating expression. "You understand that this is only going to get worse, don't you?" she said to the millionaire. "Each day that passes, more people get involved, more questions are asked." "And what exactly is your point?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "My point is that it would be better for everyone if we resolved this quickly." She approached the window, looking at the garden where it all began. "There are ways of doing things that benefit everyone involved." "What kind of ways?" "Tomorrow night I have a dinner with very influential people," she said, without looking at him. "People who could help make this whole situation simpler." The tone of her voice carried veiled threats that made the millionaire's blood run cold. He began to realize that the stepmother had much more elaborate plans than simply handing the girl over to the authorities. "What are you planning?" he asked directly. "I'm planning to protect this family," she replied, finally turning to face him. "Even if you're too foolish to realize that we need protection." That night, while the girl finally slept under Ethel's watchful care, the millionaire stayed awake, planning how to protect her from the threats that multiplied with each passing day. During the night, a disturbing discovery completely changed the course of events. Ethel, who had developed the habit of checking the girl's room every 2 hours due to the constant nightmares, found something alarming when she went to bring a glass of warm water at 3 in the morning. The girl was awake, but seemed strangely confused and disoriented. Her eyes were glazed over, and she mumbled disconnected words while staring at the ceiling, as if she saw something that wasn't there. "Honey, are you all right?" whispered Ethel, approaching carefully. "The walls are moving," murmured the girl in a slurred voice, "and there are colorful butterflies flying around the room." Ethel felt a chill run down her spine. That wasn't a normal nightmare. The child was clearly under the influence of some substance. With her heart racing, she ran to wake the millionaire. "Sir, wake up! There's something very wrong with the girl." Ethel knocked desperately on the door of the master bedroom. The millionaire jumped out of bed and ran to the guest room, finding the child in a state that terrified him. She was sitting on the bed, making movements with her hands as if she were catching invisible objects in the air. "Look how many pretty stars," she said, smiling strangely. "They're dancing just for me." "Call Dr. Gable immediately," ordered the millionaire, picking up the girl in his arms. She was limp as a rag doll without any resistance. 20 minutes later, the doctor arrived at the mansion in his pajamas, bringing his emergency kit. After carefully examining the girl, he called the millionaire for an urgent conversation in the hallway. "She's been drugged," said Dr. Gable gravely. "The symptoms are clear: dilated pupils, mental confusion, visual hallucinations. Someone mixed some kind of sedative in her food or drink." "That's impossible," protested the millionaire. "She only ate what Ethel prepared, and Ethel would never—" "I'm not accusing Ethel," interrupted the doctor, "but someone had access to the child's food, and from the symptoms, it was a dose calculated to make her confused and malleable." The revelation hit the millionaire like a bolt of lightning. Immediately he thought of the stepmother and her veiled threats from the day before. The woman had clearly demonstrated that she was willing to take more definitive measures to resolve the situation. "Doctor, is she in any danger?" he asked, controlling the anger that was growing in his chest. "The dose wasn't lethal, but it was enough to leave her vulnerable for several hours," explained the doctor. "If someone wanted to remove her from the house without resistance, this would be the perfect method." Ethel, who had overheard the conversation, covered her mouth with her hands in horror. "My God, someone tried to kidnap our girl." "Didn't try," said the millionaire, a terrible understanding taking shape in his mind, "is still trying, and I have a suspicion who it is." They returned to the room, where the girl was now sleeping deeply, her breathing slow but stable. The millionaire sat beside the bed, watching her angelic face and feeling a fierce protection growing in his heart. "Ethel, I need you to stay here with her," he said. "Don't let anyone enter this room. No one at all." "Where are you going?" she asked, worried about the determined expression on his face. "I'm going to have a very serious conversation with my stepmother." The millionaire went downstairs with firm steps, heading to the master bedroom where the stepmother should be sleeping. But when he opened the door, he found the bed empty and made, as if it hadn't been used during the night. A quick search of the house revealed that she wasn't anywhere. Her luxury car wasn't in the garage, and some of her most valuable jewelry had disappeared. It was obvious that she had fled after executing her plan. "She's gone," he announced when he returned to the girl's room. "How do you mean, gone?" asked Ethel. "She drugged the girl and fled, probably because the plan didn't work as expected." He sat heavily in the armchair. "She must have expected the child to be unconscious enough to be removed without resistance. But why would she flee if the plan didn't work? Because now we have evidence of attempted kidnapping. She knows that when the girl wakes up and we tell the authorities what happened, she'll be arrested." Dr. Gable, who had remained silent, spoke up. "There's something else you need to know. From the levels of the substance in her blood, this wasn't the first time. There are signs that she's been drugged regularly, in smaller doses." The revelation was like a bomb. Ethel remembered how the girl had shown excessive drowsiness in recent days, something they attributed to trauma and stress. "How long could this have been happening?" asked the millionaire. "From the signs I observe, at least a week," replied the doctor. "Small, regular doses to keep her docile and confused." "That's why she was having so many nightmares," murmured Ethel. "And that's why she was so scared. It wasn't just memories of the foster home. She was being slowly poisoned." The millionaire felt a murderous anger growing in his chest. His own stepmother had systematically tortured an innocent child, using methods that could have caused permanent damage to her mental health. At 7 in the morning, when the girl finally woke up, she was more lucid but still weak. Her eyes immediately looked for the millionaire, and she extended her small arms towards him. "I had strange dreams," she said in a small voice. "There was a bad lady putting bad things in my food." The millionaire's heart ached. Even drugged, the child had realized that she was being poisoned. "Do you remember anything else about those dreams?" "She was talking to a man on the phone." The girl made an effort to remember. "She said that tonight everything would be resolved, that they were going to take me away." "Tonight?" repeated Ethel, alarmed. "The dinner," murmured the millionaire, remembering the stepmother's words about meeting influential people. She said she had a dinner with people who could make the situation simpler. At that moment, the mansion's doorbell rang insistently. It was too early for normal visits, which made everyone on alert. Ethel went down to answer and returned with a panicked expression. "There are 3 men," she said, panting. "They say they're social workers and that they've come to get the girl." "They have official documents." The girl clung to the millionaire's neck, trembling violently. "They came to get me like the bad lady said they would." The millionaire looked out the window and saw 3 men in suits standing in front of the gate. Something about their posture didn't seem official. They were talking to each other nervously, and one of them was smoking anxiously. "Dr. Gable, do those men look like social workers to you?" he asked. The doctor approached the window and observed carefully. "Social workers don't work in groups of 3, especially not so early in the morning, and they don't use cars without official identification." "They're the bad lady's men," said the girl with absolute certainty. "She said they were going to come get me when the medicine made me dizzy." The situation was becoming desperate. The stepmother had orchestrated an elaborate plan to hand the girl over to the conspirators, and now they were there to execute the final part of the scheme. "Ethel, take the girl to the back room and lock the door," ordered the millionaire. "Dr. Gable, can you stay with them and continue monitoring her condition?" "Of course, but what are you going to do?" asked the doctor. "I'm going to find out exactly who those men are and what they want," he replied, heading for the staircase. "And I'm going to make sure they don't get their hands on our girl." When the millionaire went down to answer the door, he found the 3 men even more impatient. The leader, a tall, thin guy with a scar on his face, held a folder of documents that looked fake. "Sir, we're from the Municipal Social Services," he lied. "We've come to get the minor who's in your care illegally." "Show me your IDs," demanded the millionaire. The men exchanged nervous glances before presenting wallets that were clearly forged. The millionaire realized that he was dealing with professional criminals, not government employees. "The child isn't going anywhere," he said firmly, starting to close the door. "This isn't a request," said the scarred man, pushing the door forcefully. It was then that the millionaire realized that the situation had become extremely dangerous and that the girl's life depended on the next decisions he made. The millionaire kept the door firmly closed, but he could hear the 3 men talking outside. Their voices were getting more aggressive, and he realized that the situation was about to get completely out of control. "Sir, we know the child is in there," shouted the scarred man. "We don't want any trouble, but we have orders to follow." Through the side window, the millionaire watched the men spread around the garden, clearly preparing to surround the house. One of them was talking urgently on the cell phone, probably reporting the resistance encountered. Ethel appeared at the top of the stairs, carrying the girl in her arms. The child was pale and trembling, but her eyes showed a surprising determination for someone so small. "Are they going to get in?" asked the girl, with a firm voice despite the fear. "Not if I can help it," replied the millionaire, going up the stairs quickly. "But we need a plan." Dr. Gable, who had remained in the room monitoring the child's condition, approached with a worried expression. "The effects of the drug haven't completely worn off yet. If she's subjected to more stress, it could have serious consequences. Then we have to make sure that doesn't happen," said the millionaire, heading for his private study. In the study, he opened a safe hidden behind an expensive painting. Inside, in addition to important documents and gold reserves, there was a special phone that he rarely used. It was his direct line to very influential people who could help him in extreme situations. "Ethel, take the girl to the secret room," he said, referring to a small room hidden behind the bookcase that had been built by the previous owner of the mansion. "Secret room?" asked the girl, with genuine curiosity, even in the midst of danger. "It's a special place where you'll be completely safe," explained Ethel, showing how the bookcase swiveled to reveal a small, comfortable room. "It has books, toys, and even an emergency phone." While Ethel installed the girl in the hideout, the millionaire made a call to his personal lawyer, a powerful man with connections in all spheres of government. "Mr. Caldwell, I need urgent help," he said, as soon as the call was answered. "I'm being threatened by criminals who are posing as government officials." "Where are you? I can have a team there in 20 minutes, replied the lawyer, clearly alarmed. "At home. And they want to take a child who's under my protection." "A child? That complicates things legally. What exactly is your situation in relation to that child?" The millionaire explained quickly about the rescue of the girl, the medical care he had been providing, and his suspicions about the stepmother's involvement in the scheme. "I understand," said the lawyer after hearing everything. "I'm going to contact the real authorities immediately. But you need to resist until they arrive. Don't let those men in under any circumstances." As soon as he hung up, the millionaire heard the sound of glass breaking on the ground floor. The men had lost patience and were invading the mansion. "Ethel!" he shouted, running to the secret room. "They're in the house!" The dedicated housekeeper was sitting next to the girl in the small hideout, holding her hand firmly. "Honey, you need to be very quiet now," she whispered. "It's like a game of hide and seek." "I know how to be quiet," replied the girl, with a disturbing maturity. "At the foster home, whoever made noise at the wrong time got beaten badly." Ethel's heart broke once again hearing those words. That child had learned to survive through silence and invisibility. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway, accompanied by male voices discussing where to look. The millionaire positioned himself strategically in the study, prepared to defend them if necessary. "We know she's here," shouted a voice from downstairs. "Find the kid and let's go." "Check all the rooms," ordered another voice. "And watch out for the owner of the house. He might be armed." The millionaire smiled bitterly. His fortune and his investments in stocks had never been so irrelevant. At that moment, only his determination mattered. 10 minutes passed in absolute tension. The men ransacked the house systematically, opening closets, checking under beds, looking for any sign of the girl. With each door that opened, the millionaire's heart beat faster. Finally, they reached the hallway on the upper floor. The millionaire could hear their conversations through the door of the study. "She has to be up here," said one of them. "Did you check the basement?" "We already went there." "Nothing," replied another. "Maybe she ran away when she saw us coming." "Impossible. We have men watching all sides of the house." In the secret room, the girl clung to Ethel, but maintained the absolute silence promised. Her big eyes fixed on the housekeeper demonstrated a touching trust, as if she knew instinctively that that kind woman would protect her with her own life. Suddenly, the door to the study opened violently. The scarred man entered, pointing an accusing finger at the millionaire. "Where is she?" he demanded. "We know the child is in this house." "There's no child here," lied the millionaire, keeping his voice firm. "Then you don't mind if we search every inch of this room?" asked the man, signaling for the other two to start searching. They ransacked the study completely, throwing books on the floor, opening drawers, checking behind furniture. When one of them approached the bookcase that hid the secret room, the millionaire's heart almost stopped. "This bookcase is strange," commented the man, knocking on the wood. "It sounds hollow." "All bookcases sound like that when they're full of books," said the millionaire quickly, but his voice trembled slightly. The man continued examining the bookcase, looking for some mechanism that could open it. His fingers ran across the shelves, testing if any moved. In the hideout, Ethel covered the girl's mouth softly, even knowing that she wouldn't make any noise. The child understood the gesture and nodded almost imperceptibly. It was then that the sound of sirens began to echo in the distance, getting louder and louder. The real authorities were arriving, alerted by the millionaire's lawyer. "Shit," murmured the scarred man. "Someone called the real cops." "We have to leave now," said another, clearly nervous. "If they catch us here—" "We're not leaving empty-handed," replied the leader. "The child is in this house. 5 more minutes and we'll find her." But the sound of the sirens was getting too close, and the men began to get desperate. The leader approached the millionaire threateningly. "Last chance," he hissed. "Where is the girl?" "I already told you that there's no child here," repeated the millionaire, even knowing that he was risking his own safety. The man raised his hand as if to hit him, but at that moment the sirens stopped in front of the mansion. Authoritative voices echoed from the garden, ordering anyone on the property to identify themselves. "Let's go," shouted one of the men from the window. "The house is surrounded." The 3 criminals ran to the stairs, clearly in panic. The millionaire followed them at a distance, ensuring that they were really leaving the property. Minutes later, real police officers entered the mansion, led by an experienced detective who knew the millionaire's reputation in the community. "Sir, we received an alert about a home invasion," said the detective. "Is everything all right?" "It is now," replied the millionaire, finally allowing himself to relax. "But we have a lot to talk about what happened here." When Ethel came out of the hideout carrying the girl, the child looked around nervously before asking, "Did the bad men leave for good?" "They left," confirmed the millionaire, picking her up in his arms. "And now we have real people to protect us." But even as he spoke, he knew that that victory was only temporary. The stepmother was still at large, and the scheme to kidnap the girl would certainly be tried again in other ways. 2 weeks had passed since the invasion, and life in the mansion had acquired a new security routine. The millionaire had hired professional guards to patrol the property 24 hours a day, and advanced alarm systems had been installed at all entrances. His fortune, accumulated through years of smart investments in cryptocurrencies, was finally being used for something that really mattered: protecting the girl. The child, in turn, was slowly recovering from the trauma of the attempted kidnapping. The fainting episodes had decreased significantly after Dr. Gable confirmed that her body was free of the drugs administered by the stepmother. Ethel had become her protective shadow, rarely leaving her side. "Good morning, my dear," said Ethel, entering the room with a breakfast tray. "How did you sleep?" "I dreamed about little birds," replied the girl, smiling for the first time in weeks. "Blue birds that flew very high, where no one could hurt them." Ethel's heart warmed hearing those words. It was the first positive dream that the child had reported since arriving at the mansion. In the study, the millionaire received a call that would change everything again. It was his lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, with news about the investigations. "We found your stepmother," he announced in a serious voice. "She was hiding in an expensive hotel in the capital, living off money that she apparently stole from your personal accounts." "How much did she take?" asked the millionaire, although the financial value was irrelevant compared to what she had done to the girl. "Approximately $200,000 from your international investments," replied the lawyer. "But there's something more serious. She was organizing a second kidnapping, this time with even more dangerous people." The millionaire's blood ran cold. "What kind of people?" "An international syndicate that traffics children to wealthy families in other countries. Apparently, she had promised to deliver a special child to them." The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. The stepmother wasn't just trying to get rid of the girl for money, she was literally selling her to criminals who would take her far away from the country. "Where is she now?" he asked, controlling the anger that was growing in his chest. "In pretrial detention, but there's a complex legal problem that we need to discuss personally. Can I come by this afternoon?" After hanging up, the millionaire remained sitting in his leather armchair, processing the information. His investments in high-yield funds and his income in dividends had been used against him by his own stepmother. She knew his financial habits and knew exactly how to access his reserves. When he went up to check on the girl, he found her in the garden with Ethel, playing carefully among the flowers. It was a scene of peace that contrasted dramatically with the storm that was forming around them. "Look, Ethel!" exclaimed the girl, pointing to a butterfly that had landed on her small hand. "It's not afraid of me." "Because you have a pure heart," replied Ethel, caressing the child's hair. "Animals sense those things." The millionaire approached, and the girl ran to hug him, a gesture of affection that had become natural between them. "You seem worried," she observed, with the heightened perception of someone who has learned to read the emotions of adults to survive. "I'm just taking care of some things to make sure you're always safe," he replied, picking her up in his arms. "The bad lady won't come back anymore?" she asked, referring to the stepmother. "Never again," he promised, and this time he knew that he could keep the promise. In the afternoon, when Mr. Caldwell arrived at the mansion, he brought with him a voluminous folder of legal documents and a grave expression that worried the millionaire. "The situation is more complicated than we imagined," began the lawyer, sitting in the living room. "Your stepmother confessed everything in the hope of getting a more favorable plea bargain." "Confessed what exactly?" "That 2 years ago she began planning your removal from the family business." Mr. Caldwell opened the folder, revealing forged documents. "She was slowly tampering with your medical records to prove mental incompetence." The millionaire was shocked. "How so?" "She had been paying dishonest doctors to include false diagnoses in your file: severe depression, emotional instability, dependence on medication. The plan was to use this information to assume legal control of your fortune. And the girl came into this, how? As final evidence of your mental instability," explained the lawyer. "The argument would be that only a mentally unbalanced person would bring an unknown child home without checking her background." The revelation was even more shocking than the millionaire had imagined. The stepmother had orchestrated a 2-year plan to destroy his reputation and steal his inheritance, using the girl as the final piece of the puzzle. "But there's something more," continued Mr. Caldwell. "During the interrogation, she revealed information about the real investigator who initially looked for her." "What do you mean, real investigator?" "Apparently the first man who came here looking for the girl was legitimate, but your stepmother bribed him to lie about the urgency of the case and exaggerate the legal pressure on you." "So the girl really was being sought by the authorities?" "Yes, but as a protected witness, not as a fugitive." "The difference is crucial," the lawyer explained. "The government wanted to protect her while she recovered from the trauma, not force her to testify immediately." This revelation completely changed the perspective on everything that had happened. The girl was legally safe, and all the drama of the last few weeks had been artificially created by the stepmother to force a crisis situation. "So now what?" asked the millionaire. "Now you have 2 options," said the lawyer. "You can hand the girl over to the care of the state, where she will be placed in a foster family, or you can start the legal process to adopt her officially." The silence that followed was charged with emotion. The millionaire looked out the window and saw the girl in the garden, excitedly showing some discovery to Ethel. In those 2 weeks, she had become more than a temporary responsibility. She had become the daughter he never knew he wanted. "I want to adopt her," he said without hesitation. "I want her to be my daughter officially." "Are you sure?" "The process is long and complex. There will be psychological evaluations, home visits, background checks." "I'm absolutely sure," confirmed the millionaire. "This child saved my life in more ways than I can count." Mr. Caldwell smiled for the first time since he arrived. "Then let's start immediately. But there's one last obstacle we need to consider." "What?" "The real criminals from the foster home haven't been captured yet. There's a remote chance that they'll try to use the girl to blackmail you during the adoption process." As if summoned by the lawyer's words, Ethel appeared in the doorway of the room with an alarmed expression. "Sir, there's a man at the gate," she said, breathing heavily. "He says he's the director of the old foster home and that he's come to pick up his property." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The millionaire and the lawyer exchanged glances, realizing that the battle for the girl was far from over. "Where is she now?" asked the millionaire, standing up quickly. "In the secret room," replied Ethel. "As soon as I saw the man, I took her there immediately. She recognized him from the window and panicked. Recognized him how? She said he was the worst man at the foster home, the one who made the worst things happen to the children." The millionaire felt a murderous fury growing in his chest. After everything they had been through, the real perpetrators of the girl's suffering were there at the door of his house, demanding to take her back. "Mr. Caldwell, call the police immediately," ordered the millionaire. "And this time, I want that man arrested before he can get near her. What if he has legal documents? What if he really is the legal director of the foster home?" asked the lawyer. "Then we're going to find out exactly who he is and what he wants," replied the millionaire, heading for the window. "But one thing I guarantee, he's not leaving here with our girl." Outside, a fat, middle-aged man waited patiently, holding a folder of documents and smiling in a way that made the millionaire's stomach churn with disgust. The fat man at the gate showed no hurry. He remained there, rocking slightly on his heels, as if he knew that time was on his side. The revolting smile on his face revealed yellowed teeth, and his small eyes studied the mansion with evident greed. "Sir, the police are on their way," announced Mr. Caldwell, putting away his cell phone. "But they said that if he has valid legal documentation—" "I don't care what documents he has," interrupted the millionaire, watching the man through the curtain. "No paper is worth more than the girl's safety." Ethel ran upstairs to check on the child in the hideout. She found her huddled in the corner, trembling violently and muttering disconnected words. "He's here," she repeated like a mantra. "The man from the dark room is here. He came to get me like he said he would." "What dark room, honey?" asked Ethel gently, crouching beside her. "The room where he took the children when they were too noisy." The girl began to rock back and forth. "Down there at the foster home, the children who went into the dark room were never the same again." Ethel's heart broke hearing those horrible details. She hugged the girl tightly, trying to convey security through her touch. "He's not going to touch you," she promised. "We have people protecting you now." Downstairs, the doorbell rang insistently. The man had lost patience waiting and was demanding attention. The millionaire went down the stairs slowly, preparing himself mentally for the confrontation. When he opened the door, keeping the security chain in place, he was hit by a repugnant smell of rancid sweat and something he couldn't identify, but that made him want to vomit. "Good afternoon," said the man in an oily voice. "I'm Director Thaddeus Pike of the Children's Protection Institute. I've come to pick up a property that was stolen from me." "Property?" repeated the millionaire, feeling the anger growing. "Are you talking about a child, as if she were an object?" "Technically, all children under my legal responsibility are property of the Institute until they turn 18, replied the man, consulting papers in his folder. "And I have here documents that prove that the minor known as number 47 belongs to me." The reference to the girl by a number instead of a name made the millionaire's blood boil. "She has a name. And she's not anyone's property." "Ah, but legally you're wrong." The director smiled more broadly. "You see, when the government temporarily closed our institute, it didn't cancel my legal guardianship over the children who were under my care." "Care?" The millionaire couldn't hide the contempt. "Is that what you call torture?" "Discipline necessary for problematic children," replied the man without showing any shame. "Methods that have worked for decades." At that moment, Mr. Caldwell approached the door, carrying his own folder of documents. "Mr. Pike, I presume. I'm the family's lawyer. I'd like to examine your documents before we proceed." The director hesitated for a moment, clearly not expecting organized legal resistance. "Sure, but there's not much to examine. I have complete legal guardianship over the child." While the lawyer analyzed the papers through the crack in the door, the millionaire heard soft footsteps on the stairs. It was Ethel, coming down with an extremely worried expression. "The girl is asking to speak to you," she whispered. "She says she has something very important to tell you." "Now's not a good time," he replied, keeping his eyes on the director. "She insists. She says it's about the man at the door." The millionaire looked at Mr. Caldwell, who was still examining the documents with growing skepticism. "These papers seem authentic at first glance," murmured the lawyer, "but I need to verify some signatures and seals." "Doctor, can you continue examining while I go up quickly?" asked the millionaire. In the secret room, he found the girl sitting upright, with a surprising determination in her eyes. The tears had stopped, and she seemed to have made an important decision. "I need to tell you the truth about him," she said, pointing towards the front door. "About the things he did at the foster home." "You don't have to force yourself to remember those bad things," said the millionaire, sitting beside her. "I need to," she insisted, "because if I don't tell, he's going to take other children to the dark room, and I can't let that happen." The millionaire felt a wave of pride for that child's courage. Even terrified, she was willing to face her worst fears to protect other children. "He chose me to be his special assistant," she began in a firm voice. "He said I was smart and that I could help him with the other children, but what he really wanted was for me to bring the younger children to the dark room." "And you did that?" "At first, yes." She lowered her head with shame, "because when I didn't, he hurt me a lot. But then I started to lie to him. I said that the children were sick when they weren't, or I hid them when he looked. You were protecting the other children." "Trying to, but one day he found out I was lying, and then—" She stopped, trembling. "What happened?" "He said he was going to give me a lesson I would never forget. He took me to a different room, darker than the first, and there was—" She paused, taking a deep breath. "There were other men." The millionaire felt nausea rising in his throat as he understood the implications of those words. The girl had been subjected to horrors that no child should know. "Was that when you decided to run away?" "Yes, but before I ran away, I took something very important." She got up and went to a small drawer in the corner of the secret room. "Something that can prove that he's very bad." She came back carrying a tiny digital recorder, almost the size of a coin. "What's this?" asked the millionaire, impressed. "One of the older children got this on the street and gave it to me. She said it was to record the voices of the bad men, so I hid it in the dark room and recorded him talking." "Recorded him talking about what?" "About selling the children, about how some went to wealthy families in other countries and others went to other bad places." The millionaire took the recorder with trembling hands. If that really contained evidence of the director's crimes, it would completely change the situation. "Do you know how to make it work?" The girl nodded and pressed a small button. Immediately, the director's voice echoed through the small room, clear and unmistakable. "The next shipment goes to France next week. 3 girls, all under 6 years old. The client pays extra for virgins. The ones who resist too much, we send to the laboratories." "At least they're good for something before—" The millionaire turned off the device, feeling sick. The evidence was more than enough to completely destroy the director and all his accomplices. "You're very brave," he said, hugging the girl. "Much braver than any adult I know." "Is he going to jail now?" she asked hopefully. "He's going to jail, and he's never going to hurt a child again," promised the millionaire. When they went downstairs, they found Mr. Caldwell arguing animatedly with the director through the ajar door. The lawyer had found several irregularities in the documents presented. "These signatures are clearly forged," said Mr. Caldwell, "and this official seal was cancelled 6 months ago." "Those are just bureaucratic irregularities," retorted the director, starting to sweat visibly. My rights over the child are still valid. Actually, interrupted the millionaire, appearing behind the lawyer, your rights have just been permanently terminated. He showed the recorder to the director, who paled instantly upon recognizing the object. Where did you get that? Stammered the man. From a very brave child that you tortured for years, replied the millionaire, and who is now going to testify against you. The sound of sirens began to echo in the distance, getting closer and closer. The director looked nervously around, realizing that he was cornered. You don't understand, he said desperately. I have powerful contacts, people who will protect my interests. This isn't going to stay like this. Your powerful people can't help you now, replied Mr. Caldwell, smiling. Because this case has just become international. 3 police cars stopped in front of the mansion, and armed officers surrounded the director quickly. But when they went to handcuff him, he made one last threat that chilled the blood of everyone present. You think I work alone? He laughed maniacally. I have international partners, and they're not going to like losing valuable merchandise. This war is just beginning. The director's threats echoed through the mansion long after he had been taken away in handcuffs. The millionaire increased the security of the property even further, hiring a company specializing in witness protection. His fortune in stocks and investments in national treasure finally had a clear purpose: to ensure that the girl was protected against any retaliation. 2 weeks passed in relative tranquility, but the tension was palpable. The girl demonstrated a disturbing maturity, understanding that her courageous decision to hand over the recordings had made her an even more valuable target for the criminals. Do you think they'll try to get me again? She asked one morning while having breakfast with the millionaire and Ethel. If they try, they're going to find an unpleasant surprise, he replied, showing her the system of cameras and alarms that now monitored every inch of the property. Ethel had become even more protective since Thaddeus Pike's arrest, rarely leaving Luna alone. The devoted housekeeper had developed a fierce maternal instinct that surprised even herself. Honey, Dr. Gable is bringing news about your adoption papers today, Ethel announced, serving more pancakes. Are you excited? Luna's eyes sparkled with a joy she rarely showed. Does that mean I can stay here forever, even if more bad men come? It means you'll officially be my daughter, the millionaire responded, his voice thick with emotion. Nothing and no one can change that. Just then, the mansion's phone rang. It was Mr. Caldwell, with news that would change everything again. I need to come over immediately, he said, his voice tense. We have urgent developments in the case. An hour later, the lawyer arrived accompanied by an elegant woman in her 40s who introduced herself as a federal agent specializing in international crimes. Ms. Martinez, she said, shaking the millionaire's hand. I've been working on international child trafficking cases for 15 years. Luna, who was playing in the garden with Ethel, was called inside. Upon seeing the federal agent, she hid behind the millionaire, but she didn't show the terror she used to feel around strangers. You don't have to be afraid, Agent Martinez said, crouching down to be at the child's level. I'm here to help you and people like you. The recordings you made were extraordinary, she continued. They allowed us to dismantle an international network that's been operating for decades. Did you catch all the bad men? Luna asked hopefully. Most of them, the agent replied. But there's a problem we need to discuss. Agent Martinez opened a file and showed photographs of men that made one's stomach churn just by looking at them. These are the director's international partners, she explained. They've discovered that you were the one who provided the evidence, and they are very interested in preventing you from testifying at the trial. What kind of interest? The millionaire asked, already dreading the answer. They've put a $500,000 bounty on your capture alive, the agent said, and they've threatened everyone who is helping to protect you. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethel instinctively moved closer to Luna, as if she could protect her just by being near. But we have a solution, Agent Martinez continued. The Witness Protection Program can relocate you to a safe location until the trial is over. Relocate where? The millionaire asked. To another country, with completely new identities. You'd live as a normal family until all the criminals have been tried and convicted. Luna tugged on the millionaire's shirt. Does that mean we'd have to leave here? Temporarily, the agent replied. Maybe for a few months. What about Ethel? Luna asked, looking worriedly at the housekeeper. Ethel can come with us if she wants, the millionaire said, looking at the woman who had become an essential part of their lives. Wherever you go, I go too, Ethel declared without hesitation. This little girl is like a granddaughter to me now. Agent Martinez smiled. Perfect. Then tomorrow night, a specialized team will come to pick you up. You'll have 2 hours to pack only the essentials. What about my businesses? The millionaire asked, thinking about his investments and real estate funds. They'll be managed remotely by trusted people, Mr. Caldwell replied. Your fortune will remain untouched, and you can monitor everything through secure connections. That night, as they discreetly packed a few things for the trip, Luna asked a question that caught everyone off guard. In the new place, can I have a real name? What do you mean? The millionaire asked. At the foster home, I was just a number. Here you call me Honey or my girl. But I'd like to have a real name, like the other children. The millionaire's heart broke as he realized that in all these months, they had never asked if she wanted to choose a name for herself. What name would you like to have? Ethel asked, sitting next to her on the bed. I've always liked the name Luna, she said shyly. Because at the foster home, when the nights were really bad, I would look out the window and the moon made me feel less alone. Luna is a beautiful name, the millionaire said, his voice thick with emotion. And it suits you perfectly. So I can be a real Luna, on the papers and everything? You can be whoever you want to be, he promised. Luna will be your official name when the adoption is finalized. The next morning, a terrifying discovery almost ruined all the plans. Ethel found signs that someone had tried to break into the house during the night. Strange footprints in the garden, marks on the windows, and worst of all, a note left on the windshield of the millionaire's car. We know where you are. We know where you're going. The girl belongs to us. Agent Martinez was called immediately and arrived with a reinforced security team. They found out about the relocation, she said, examining the evidence. We have a leak somewhere. Does that mean we can't trust the protection program anymore? The millionaire asked. It means we have to improvise, the agent replied, and act much faster than we planned. Luna, who had insisted on being called by her new name since the morning before, watched everything with surprising calm. They always find me, she said, no matter where I hide. This time is different, the millionaire said, kneeling next to her. This time you're not alone. You have a whole family protecting you. What if they hurt you because of me? That's not going to happen, Ethel promised, because we're smarter than they are. Agent Martinez approached with a new plan. We have to leave today, but not through official channels. I'll use personal contacts to get you out of the country without leaving a trace. What if it doesn't work? Luna asked. It will work, the millionaire said firmly. Because this time, we have something they don't expect. What? A family that fights for you. And families do impossible things when someone they love is in danger. As they prepared to leave the mansion that had become a true home, Luna made a last request that surprised everyone. Can I take the butterfly? She asked, pointing to a crystal butterfly that Ethel had bought to decorate her room. Of course, honey, Ethel replied. But why that one? Because butterflies can fly anywhere without anyone being able to catch them, Luna explained, and I want to be like that too. At 6 in the evening, when the extraction team arrived discreetly at the back of the mansion, they were ready. But what none of them knew was that their true ordeal was just beginning. A man watched the house through binoculars 500 meters away, speaking urgently into a radio. They're moving. I confirm, they're moving. Execute Plan B immediately. The extraction operation began silently from the back of the mansion. Agent Martinez led a team of 4 witness protection specialists, all dressed as employees of a moving company. The plan was simple: leave discreetly in an unmarked truck and drive to a private airport where an aircraft awaited them. Luna held the crystal butterfly tightly while the millionaire carried a small suitcase with their essential belongings. Ethel nervously checked one last time if she had forgotten anything important. His investments in gold and his international investments would allow them to start a new life anywhere in the world, but leaving everything behind was still emotionally devastating. "Remember," Agent Martinez whispered, "once we leave this house, there's no going back until we capture all the criminals in the network." "How long could that take?" Ethel asked, adjusting the small backpack on her back. "Between 6 months and 2 years, the agent replied. "It depends on how many countries are involved in the operation." Luna looked at the mansion one last time, thinking about how that place had become her first real home. "Will we be able to come back one day?" "We will," the millionaire promised, taking her small hand. "And when we come back, everything will be exactly as we left it." The team moved silently through the garden, using the cover of the trees to avoid being detected. The truck was parked on the back street, disguised among other service vehicles working in the neighborhood. But when they reached the back gate, Agent Martinez stopped abruptly, raising her hand to signal danger. She had noticed suspicious movement on the adjacent street. "We have company," she murmured into the radio. "3 vehicles in blocking position." The millionaire's heart raced. "Did they find out our escape route?" "Apparently so," the agent replied, quickly consulting a map of the area. "We have to improvise a new exit." Luna clung more tightly to the millionaire's hand, but her voice remained surprisingly calm. "Is there another way out of here?" Ethel remembered something. "The service tunnel." "What tunnel?" Agent Martinez asked. "The old owner of the mansion built a tunnel that connects the basement with the city's sewer system," Ethel explained. "It was for emergencies during the war. Do you know where the entrance is?" the millionaire asked. "Yes, but no one has used it for decades. It may be blocked or unsafe." Agent Martinez made a quick decision. "It's our best option. Let's try." They went back inside the mansion and went down to the basement, a cold and damp space where the millionaire kept his most valuable collections. Ethel searched behind a shelf of expensive wines until she found a disguised lever. When she activated it, a section of the wall moved, revealing a narrow passage that disappeared into the darkness. "Doesn't look very inviting," one of the agents commented. "Better than being captured," Agent Martinez retorted, turning on a powerful flashlight. Luna approached the tunnel entrance without fear. "It's like the secret room, only bigger." "Aren't you afraid of dark places?" Ethel asked, impressed by the girl's courage. "At the foster home, the dark places were sometimes the only safe ones," Luna replied. "I learned to like the darkness." One by one, they entered the tunnel. The passage was narrow, forcing them to walk in single file. The air was stale and laden with moisture, but the structure seemed solid despite years of neglect. After 20 minutes of cautious walking, they reached a fork in the road. Agent Martinez consulted a digital compass while studying the options. "To the left leads to the main sewer system," she said. "To the right it seems to go up towards the surface." "Let's go to the right," the millionaire suggested. "The less time we spend underground, the better." But as they began to climb through the passage on the right, they heard distant voices echoing through the main tunnel. Someone had discovered the entrance in the basement and was following them. "They're behind us," Agent Martinez whispered. "We have to speed up." The passage became steeper and narrower, forcing them to climb some sections. Luna, despite her small stature, moved with surprising agility, clearly accustomed to navigating tight spaces. "This way," she said, pointing to a side opening that the adults almost missed. "I feel fresh air coming from there." They followed the girl's intuition and found a rusty metal ladder that climbed towards the light. When they finally emerged, they were in a manhole in the middle of a public square, 3 blocks from the mansion. "Incredible," Agent Martinez murmured. "You just saved the operation." But the celebration was brief. Suspicious cars began to circle the square, clearly looking for them. The criminals had anticipated that they would try to escape through the area and were systematically sweeping the streets. "We need a place to hide until nightfall," the agent said, watching the movement of the vehicles. Luna pointed to an old church across the square. "Churches are sanctuaries, right? Bad people can't go in?" "In theory," Ethel replied, "but that might give us a few hours of safety." They crossed the square in small groups, pretending to be tourists or ordinary pedestrians. The church was empty except for an elderly lady who prayed silently in the front pews. The priest, a kind man in his 60s, received them with natural hospitality. "Can I help you with something?" Agent Martinez discreetly showed her federal ID. "We need temporary sanctuary, Father. It's a matter of life." The priest asked no questions. "Come, there is a safe place in the bell tower." As they climbed the narrow stairs of the bell tower, Luna made an observation that surprised everyone. "The bad men will give up if they think we've fled the city." "What do you mean?" the millionaire asked. "If they see we're not at the mansion anymore, they'll think we've already managed to escape. Then they'll look in other places." Agent Martinez stopped climbing the stairs. "She's right. If we stay hidden here for a few hours, they'll expand the search perimeter." "And then?" Ethel asked. "Then we go back to the mansion when they're not expecting it," Luna suggested. "And we leave through the front door." It was a risky plan, but it had the advantage of simplicity. Sometimes the most obvious strategies were the most difficult to detect. In the bell tower, they settled among the old bells, watching the activity in the city through the narrow windows. Gradually, the suspicious cars moved away from the central area, confirming Luna's theory. "This girl has extraordinary survival instincts," Agent Martinez commented. "She's learned more about strategy in 4 years than many agents learn in decades." "I had good teachers," Luna said sadly. "Other children at the foster home taught me how not to get caught." As the sun began to set, they descended from the bell tower and prepared to return to the mansion. But before leaving the church, Luna approached the altar and closed her eyes for a moment. "What are you doing?" Ethel asked. "Asking my mum to help me be brave," Luna replied. "She always protected me when I was scared." "Is your mom dead?" the millionaire asked gently. "I think so," Luna said, "but sometimes I feel like she's still taking care of me." 20 minutes later, they were back at the mansion, which seemed completely abandoned. The criminals had really expanded their search to other areas of the city. "Now or never," Agent Martinez said, heading for the garage where an ordinary car awaited them. But when they opened the garage door, they found a surprise that changed everything. The stepmother was there, waiting for them with a triumphant smile on her face. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out about the escape plan?" she said, holding a cell phone. "One call from me and half a dozen cars will be here in 5 minutes." The nightmare was far from over, and now they faced the most dangerous enemy of all, someone who knew all their secrets. The stepmother was different. Her hair was disheveled, there were dark circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes were wrinkled. Weeks in prison had taken their toll, but the greed in her eyes remained unchanged. "How did you get out of prison?" the millionaire asked, keeping Luna protected behind him. "Bail," she replied with a cruel smile. "I found out I have very influential friends. Friends who want the same thing I want." Agent Martinez moved her hand discreetly towards her weapon, but the stepmother noticed the movement. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she said, showing the phone. "One touch on this screen, and 15 armed men surround this house in 2 minutes. "What do you want?" Ethel asked, placing herself protectively next to Luna. "I want what I've always wanted," the stepmother replied. "Total control of this fortune. And now I have the key to get it." She pointed directly at Luna, who remained surprisingly calm in the face of the threat. "The girl is worth a lot of money to very dangerous people," the stepmother continued, "and I'm going to be the one who delivers her." "Never," the millionaire said firmly. "Oh, but you will," she laughed bitterly, "because I discovered something very interesting about our little heroine." The stepmother took a yellowed folder from her expensive bag and spread photographs on the hood of the car. "Do you recognize these people?" she asked, showing old photos to Luna. The girl approached hesitantly, and her eyes widened as she saw the images. "It's my parents," she whispered. "Exactly," the stepmother said triumphantly. "Your real parents. And do you know who was involved in the accident that killed them?" The silence in the garage was deafening. Luna stared at the photographs, seeing faces she vaguely recognized from almost erased memories. "It was him," the stepmother pointed to the millionaire. "His company built the faulty overpass that collapsed on your parents' car 4 years ago." The revelation hit everyone like lightning. The millionaire paled, vaguely remembering a lawsuit that had been settled discreetly by his lawyers years ago. That can't be true," he murmured. "Oh, but it is," the stepmother spread more documents. "Engineering reports, construction records, all proving that your company used cheap materials to increase profits. And when the overpass collapsed, it killed 7 people, including this girl's parents." Luna looked at the millionaire with an unreadable expression. "Did you know?" "No," he replied honestly. "My lawyers took care of everything. I never knew the specific details of the accidents." "But you knew your company had caused accidents," the stepmother insisted, "and chose not to investigate because it would be bad for business." The weight of guilt hit the millionaire like an avalanche. His successful investments, his accumulated fortune, had all been built on decisions that cost innocent lives. "Luna," he said, kneeling to her height, "I didn't know. If I knew, what would you have done?" Luna asked with a disturbing maturity. "Would you have brought my parents back?" The question hung in the air. Agent Martinez watched the emotional dynamics, realizing that the situation had become much more complex than a simple protection operation. "Now, do you understand why she should come with me?" the stepmother said. "It's justice. The orphaned daughter being sold by the man who killed her parents." "That's not justice," Ethel said, with tears in her eyes. "That's cruel revenge." "Sometimes they're the same thing," the stepmother retorted. Luna approached the photographs again, gently touching the image of her parents. "They were beautiful," she murmured. "They were good people," the stepmother said, showing momentary humanity. "Your father was an engineer," ironically. "He could have detected the defects in the construction if he had had the chance. And my mom? A teacher of special children, like you." The parallel was devastating. Luna's parents dedicated their lives to building and educating, while the millionaire's business decisions had destroyed all of that. "Luna," the millionaire said, his voice thick with emotion, "I'm so sorry, more than you can imagine." "I know," she replied simply. "I can see it in your eyes," the stepmother interrupted the moment. "Regrets don't change anything, but justice can still be done." "Selling a child to criminals isn't justice," Agent Martinez said. "It's perpetuating the cycle of violence." "It's giving her what she deserves," the stepmother argued, "a life away from the man who destroyed her family." Luna turned to face the stepmother directly. "And you think the bad men are going to give me a good life?" "That's not my problem," the stepmother replied coldly. "So you don't really care about justice," Luna observed. "You just want money." The simplicity of the observation exposed the stepmother's hypocrisy. She wasn't motivated by justice, but by pure greed. "The money will allow me to have the life I've always deserved," the stepmother defended herself. "What life is that?" Luna asked. "A life built on the suffering of children?" The question hit a sensitive nerve. The stepmother hesitated for a moment, as if she were questioning her own motivations. "You don't understand," she said, but her voice had lost some of the conviction. "You're just a child." "I'm a child who's already seen a lot of evil," Luna replied. And I've learned to recognize when someone is trying to convince themselves that doing something bad is right. The millionaire watched the dialogue with growing fascination. Luna was demonstrating an emotional wisdom that transcended her age, disarming the stepmother's arguments with simple but powerful logic. Your choices aren't about me, Luna continued. They're about who you choose to be. I choose to be rich, the stepmother replied, but her voice trembled slightly. And I choose to forgive, Luna said, looking at the millionaire, because holding on to anger only hurts the one who holds it. The statement left everyone speechless. A 4-year-old child, who had suffered more trauma than most adults, was choosing forgiveness over revenge. You can't forgive, the stepmother protested. He killed your parents. No, he didn't kill them, Luna corrected. He made bad decisions that hurt people. But now he's making good decisions to protect me. That doesn't erase the past. No, Luna agreed, but it builds a better future. Agent Martinez approached the stepmother. Last chance to do the right thing. The right thing for whom? The stepmother asked, but her determination was clearly shaken. For you, Luna replied, so you can look in the mirror without shame. It was then that the stepmother made her final mistake. Furious at being confronted by a child, she picked up the phone to make the promised call. But Luna moved faster than anyone expected. With the agility she had developed to survive in the foster home, she jumped and snatched the phone from the stepmother's hands. No, she said firmly. Enough hurting people. The stepmother tried to recover the phone, but Ethel and Agent Martinez quickly restrained her. It's over, the agent said, handcuffing the stepmother. This time you'll stay in jail until the trial. As the stepmother was led out of the garage, she shouted one last threat. You think this ends here? Other people know where you are. This will never end. But Luna no longer seemed scared. She held the crystal butterfly tightly and looked at the millionaire with an expression of quiet determination. Now, can we go to the safe place? She asked. Yes, he replied, picking her up. Now we can go home. This is our home, Luna said, looking at the mansion. And when we come back, we're going to make it even better. It was a promise of hope amid the chaos, and everyone clung to it like a beacon in the storm. 3 months had passed since the final arrest of the stepmother, and life had acquired a routine of peace that seemed almost unreal after so much trauma. Agent Martinez had managed to completely dismantle the international network of criminals, using Luna's recordings as key evidence in courts in 5 different countries. The mansion, now truly safe, had transformed into a home full of life. Luna, who now officially went by her chosen name, attended a private school where her exceptional intelligence impressed teachers and peers. His investments in low-risk securities and his steady dividend income allowed the millionaire to provide Luna with every opportunity she deserved. Dad, Luna said one sunny morning, using the title she had started calling the millionaire naturally, can I invite my friend from school to play here? His heart warmed every time she called him that. The adoption process had been officially finalized the week before, and Luna was now legally his daughter. Of course, honey, he replied, watching her eat colorful cereal for breakfast. What's her name? Josephine. She was also adopted, but by a regular family. She says I'm lucky to have a rich dad. Ethel, who now officially held the position of housekeeper and unofficial adoptive mother to Luna, smiled as she overheard the conversation. I'll prepare something special for the girls' snack. Ethel, Luna said, can you teach Josephine to make those butterfly-shaped cookies you made for me? Sure, dear, but why butterflies? Because butterflies start as ugly caterpillars and turn into something beautiful, Luna explained, with the wisdom that continued to surprise the adults. Like me. The millionaire almost choked on his coffee at that profound observation. Even at 4 years old, Luna demonstrated a capacity for self-awareness and overcoming challenges that inspired him daily. That afternoon, when Josephine arrived to play, the millionaire watched the 2 girls interacting in the garden. Luna had become a normal child in many ways, but she maintained a special kindness with other children who seemed scared or sad. "Luna is different from other kids," Josephine commented to Ethel while they made cookies in the kitchen. "She always knows when I'm sad, even when I pretend I'm okay." "Luna learned to read people's emotions to protect herself," Ethel explained carefully. "Now she uses that ability to help others." "It's like she's an angel," Josephine said with childlike admiration. Later, when the girls were playing in Luna's room, the millionaire received a call that would change his perspectives on the future. It was a federal prosecutor who had worked on the criminal network case. "Sir," the prosecutor said, "I have an unusual proposal to make." "What kind of proposal?" "We would like you to consider participating in a special program to support other children who are victims of trafficking. Luna has demonstrated a unique ability to help traumatized children open up." The idea was intriguing. What exactly would that involve? Supervised visits to shelters where other rescued children are recovering. Luna wouldn't need to talk about her own trauma, just be present as an example that recovery is possible. The millionaire considered the proposal carefully. Using his fortune, accumulated through years of business profitability, to create a positive social impact had always been a distant dream. Now, with Luna as inspiration, it seemed not only possible but necessary. "I need to talk to Luna about this," he said. "I won't do anything she doesn't want to do." "Of course. And if you decide to participate, we offer full psychological support for the whole family." After hanging up, the millionaire went upstairs to talk to Luna. He found her teaching Josephine to draw birds, an artistic skill she had developed naturally. "Luna, can I talk to you about something important?" She set aside the pencils and looked at him with full attention. "Is it about the other boys and girls who were hurt like I was?" Her perception still surprised him. "How did you know?" "Because you get that worried look when you think about sad children," she observed. "And because I dreamed about them last night." "What kind of dream?" "I dreamed I was flying like a butterfly, and I found other children lost in the darkness. I showed them that there was light somewhere." Josephine listened with fascination. "Do you always have dreams like that?" "Sometimes," Luna replied, "but now they're good dreams. Before they were nightmares." The millionaire sat on the floor next to the girls. "Luna, how would you feel if we could help those children for real?" "How?" "Visiting places where they are recovering, showing them that it's possible to be okay again." Luna was silent for a long moment, clearly processing the idea seriously. "Would they be safe in those places?" "Completely safe." "And would you and Ethel go with me?" "Always." "Then yes," she said without hesitation. "I want to help. Because I know what it's like to be scared and think that no one cares about you." Josephine hugged Luna impulsively. "You're the bravest person I know." "I'm not brave," Luna corrected. "I just learned that when good people take care of you, it gets easier to be strong." That night, after Josephine returned home, the small family gathered in the living room to discuss the new proposal. Ethel was enthusiastic about the idea of helping other children, and Luna demonstrated a touching determination. "There's one thing I want to do," Luna said, sitting on the millionaire's lap. "I want all the children we help to get a crystal butterfly like mine." "Why?" "To remind them that they can turn into something beautiful, even if they feel ugly inside now." The millionaire felt tears forming in his eyes. The girl he had saved in the garden was now saving other people just by being who she was. "We're going to do more than that," he promised. "We're going to create a special foundation to help children like you, with psychologists, teachers, and everything they need." "And can we call it the Butterfly Foundation?" Luna suggested. "Perfect," Ethel agreed. "The children will love that name." "And Luna," said the millionaire, "would you like to be the first official child counselor of the foundation?" "What does that mean?" "It means that other children will be able to talk to you when they're scared." And you can help them understand that it's worth trusting good adults. Luna nodded solemnly. That's very important. Because at the foster home, we learned that all adults were dangerous. And now? Now I know that there are dangerous adults and adults who protect, and children need to learn the difference. 2 weeks later, they made their first visit to a shelter for rescued children. Luna wore her favorite dress and carried a small box full of crystal butterflies that she had helped choose in a special store. The shelter housed 12 children between the ages of 3 and 8, all in different stages of recovery from severe trauma. When Luna entered the recreation room, some children hid. Others watched her with cautious curiosity. "Hello," Luna said simply, sitting on the floor and taking her own crystal butterfly out of her pocket. "I used to be very scared too." A 5-year-old girl approached hesitantly. "Why aren't you scared anymore?" "Because I learned that there are people who protect us instead of hurting us," Luna replied, offering a crystal butterfly to the girl. "And because I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought." "How did you find that out?" "When I saved my dad from a giant anaconda," Luna said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The children's eyes widened. "You saved an adult?" "I saved him. And you know what I learned?" "That even being small, I can do important things." During the next 2 hours, Luna spoke individually with each child, offering crystal butterflies and sharing carefully selected pieces of her own journey. She didn't talk about the horrors she had lived through, but about the hope she had found. When it was time to leave, a little girl who hadn't spoken to anyone approached Luna. "Will the butterfly protect me?" she asked, in an almost inaudible voice. "No," Luna replied honestly. "But it will remind you that you can turn into someone happy, and that's a different kind of protection." In the car, going home, Luna was exceptionally quiet. The millionaire worried that the experience had been too intense for her. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Good," she replied, looking out the window. "But also sad." "Sad why?" "Because some of those children are still very scared. And I wish I could take all their fear away at once." "You can't take the fear away all at once," Ethel said gently, "but you can show them that it's possible to live without letting fear be in control." "That's what I learned," Luna agreed. "That fear can be there, but courage can be bigger." That night before bed, Luna did something that deeply touched the millionaire's heart. She wrote a short letter to the children at the shelter, using her still, childlike handwriting. "Dear butterfly friends, you are stronger than you know. One day you will fly high, as I have learned to fly. With love, Luna." It was the beginning of a mission that would define the rest of their lives, transforming pain into purpose, trauma into strength, and fear into hope. 2 years had passed since that first visit to the shelter, and the Butterfly Foundation had become one of the most respected child protection organizations in the country. The millionaire had redirected a large portion of his investments in stocks and securities to support the foundation, discovering that using his fortune to transform lives brought a satisfaction that no profit had ever provided. Luna, now 6 years old, had helped more than 200 children in their recovery process. Her natural ability to connect with traumatized children had been complemented by specialized training with child psychologists, making her a little ambassador of hope. "Dad," Luna said one Sunday morning, as she helped Ethel prepare cookies to take to the new shelter they would visit that afternoon, "do you remember when you found me in the garden?" "How could I forget?" replied the millionaire, who now spent more time with his family and less time obsessed with net worth and profitability. "You saved my life that day." "No," Luna corrected, with the wisdom that continued to surprise everyone. "We saved each other." Ethel smiled, watching the conversation as she cut the cookie dough into butterfly shapes. The devoted housekeeper had officially become Luna's adoptive grandmother, a transformation of roles that had brought new energy to her life. "What do you mean, dear?" Ethel asked. Because I was lost and scared, and he was sad and lonely, Luna explained. When lost people find each other, they can find themselves together. That's a very beautiful way of seeing things, said the millionaire, picking Luna up. But you know that I owe you much more than you owe me, right? Why? Because you taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to love someone every day. Luna considered this for a moment. So Ethel is also our family? Of course, Ethel replied, moved. You are my real family now. And all the children we help are also a little bit our family, Luna asked. In a way, yes, the millionaire agreed. Because once we love someone, that love doesn't disappear. That afternoon, they visited the newest shelter in the area, which had just received 15 children rescued from a terrible situation. Luna entered carrying her box of crystal butterflies, now a tradition in all her visits. One of the children drew particular attention, a 4-year-old boy who didn't speak and cowered whenever adults approached him. Psychologists explained that he had experienced severe trauma and didn't trust anyone. Luna sat a respectful distance from the boy and began to draw birds on a piece of paper without trying to force interaction. Gradually, the boy approached, curious about the colorful drawings. "Do you like birds?" Luna asked softly. The boy nodded shyly. "Me too." "They can fly anywhere they want," she said, continuing to draw. "Sometimes I imagine I'm a bird and I can fly away from everything that scares me." "I want to fly too," whispered the boy, his first words in weeks. "You know what I found out?" said Luna, offering him a colored pencil. "We can fly even without having wings. When we find people who love us, it gives us strength to fly." The boy took the pencil hesitantly and began to make small marks on the paper. They weren't recognizable drawings, but it was his way of expressing himself. "Very beautiful," Luna praised genuinely. "Want a special butterfly?" She offered a blue crystal butterfly, and the boy held it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "This butterfly has special powers," Luna whispered conspiratorially. "It reminds you that you can turn into someone very strong and happy." "Like you?" the boy asked. "Like me," Luna confirmed. "I used to be very scared too. But now I have a family that loves me, and that made me brave." During the following weeks, the millionaire began to receive regular reports on the boy's progress. He had started to talk more, to interact with other children, and always carried the crystal butterfly with him. "Luna really has a special gift," commented the director of the shelter during a call. "She manages to reach children that even our most experienced therapists can't touch. She understands the language of trauma," the millionaire replied, "because she lived it in her own skin. And you transformed that painful experience into something healing. It's extraordinary." That night, during family dinner, Luna made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I want to adopt the boy from the shelter," she said simply. "What do you mean, dear?" Ethel asked. "I want him to come live with us, to be my little brother." The millionaire and Ethel looked at each other. The idea wasn't impossible, but it would be a big change for everyone. "Why do you want that?" the millionaire asked. "Because he's still very scared and I can help him not to be scared, and because families take care of each other?" "But adopting a child is a very serious decision," Ethel explained. "It means taking care of him forever, even when he's not being nice." "I know," Luna said, "like you did with me when I had nightmares and was scared." "You were never difficult to love," the millionaire said honestly. "But sometimes I was difficult to understand," Luna recalled. "And you were patient with me." The conversation extended for weeks, with visits from the social worker, psychological evaluations, and many conversations about how family dynamics would change. But the more they discussed, the clearer it became that Luna was right. They had enough love for one more child. 3 months later, on a sunny spring morning, the boy arrived at the mansion carrying a small backpack and his crystal butterfly. Luna greeted him at the door, wearing her favorite dress and carrying a special gift. "Welcome to our family," she said, offering him a drawing she had made. It was a house surrounded by colourful birds, with 4 figures in front, a tall man, a grey-haired lady, a girl, and a little boy. "Is that me?" the boy asked, pointing to the smaller figure. "That's you," Luna confirmed. "You're my brother now." "And are they my parents too?" "They are, and Ethel is our special grandma who makes the best cookies in the world." Ethel knelt to be at the boy's level. "Welcome home, my dear. I've prepared your room, next to Luna's room. Can I see?" "Of course," Luna said, taking his hand. "I'm going to show you all the special places in our house." As the children climbed the stairs, the millionaire watched with emotion. His life had completely transformed since that day in the garden when a brave girl had saved his life from an anaconda. Now, his fortune, accumulated through decades of smart investments, was being used to create a family and help hundreds of other children. "Do you regret anything?" asked Ethel, watching the children explore the house. "Only that I didn't start this journey sooner," he replied. "But maybe I needed to meet Luna to understand what really matters in life." "And what matters?" "Love, family, using what we have to make the world a little better." That night, as he put the 2 children to sleep, the millionaire reflected on how his life had gained purpose. His businesses continued to prosper, his investments in funds would yield dividends for years, but none of that mattered as much as the 2 small, sleeping faces in the rooms next door. Luna had transformed from a traumatized child into a healing force for other children. The boy was starting his own journey of recovery, with the love of a true family to support him. And Ethel had found a new purpose, as the grandmother of 2 special children. The next day, a call came that would be the crowning glory of everything they had built. The Butterfly Foundation had been nominated for an International Human Rights Award in recognition of its revolutionary work with child trafficking victims. "Dad," said Luna when he told her the news, "does this mean that more people will know that scared children can turn into butterflies?" "It means exactly that," he replied, hugging her. "Then I'm happy," she said simply, "because now more children will know that there is hope. And you," said the millionaire, "are living proof that hope always conquers fear." "No, Dad," Luna corrected, looking at her little brother who was playing in the garden where it had all begun. "We are the proof, our whole family, because when people choose each other to love, they create miracles." As they watched the children playing in the garden where an anaconda had attacked years ago, the millionaire understood the complete truth. He hadn't saved Luna that day, she had saved him, and together they were saving many other children, creating a legacy of love that would last forever. The girl who once drew sad birds had become a free bird, teaching other children that they too could fly. And in that transformation, a family had been born, a foundation had grown, and hundreds of lives had been touched by the simple magic of unconditional love. In the end, the greatest fortune that the millionaire had accumulated wasn't in his stocks, Bitcoin, or investments. It was in the laughter of 2 children running through the garden, in Ethel's satisfaction preparing special cookies, and in the certainty that true love always finds a way to multiply, like butterflies that fly free, carrying hope wherever they land. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving a score from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.